is clear, is the sunny water. What will be the implication? It will be an issue to do with poisoning. Who is the culprit? Is it the child who took it or the person who packaged it? The person who does the packaging. So these are the awareness that you need to do, and we need to understand ourselves that during the packaging, the chemical should be well labeled and well kept. Because once you put your detergent making stuff in a water bottle, and that's where you buy them from. If you go out there, unapata watu na tuchupa, lakini sio maji, ni those detergent reagents. It exposes the population to very high risks. And one, next slide. During that study of aggravates in Kisumu, some random questions were asked. Now that you handle these pesticides, have you been having incidences of headaches, stinging irritation, blood vision, sore throat, burning of runny nose bleeding, shortness of breath, chest tightness, coughing, excessive sweating, skin itching, dizziness, loss of appetite, stomach pains, diarrhea? And as you can see here, because of these occupational exposures, there has been significantly large proportions of the population in the test sample that were experiencing these symptoms. And these symptoms could be directly attributable to the toxicity that they are getting out of their interaction with the chemicals. Hardly do you see somebody working in an aggravate with a mask. And that is where you deal with very toxic chemicals. Why don't they do it? Don't they love themselves? Don't they love themselves? They do. Do they know that whatever they are doing is wrong? They do. Some of them do. Because you cannot be licensed to have an aggravate without the proper training in management or partial training in management of chemicals. What we need to have is proper enforcement structures, and the people working there to be educated even better to take care of themselves. The next slide is a very current slide. The current slides, what is happening in this country. Those of you who have been following news, and I always say in my class when I'm teaching, make sure that you follow the current affairs of what is happening in your country, especially with issues related with chemicals. Because if I happen to be in that interview, you know it, the one that you want to go for that interview. These are the kind of questions that you ask. I may not ask you about the instrumentation because you might not have. I taught you introduction to instrumental techniques. Utakuwa umeiva hiyo sana. I'll look at the current affairs. One of the cases that has been dragging in court for a couple of years is a case in Mombasa, a place called Uhuru Owino, or Owino Uhuru. Which? Owino Uhuru. And it was the same thing that Professor Biongo was talking about, whereby some lead recycling plant is put up in a residential area, actually in the heart of a slum. And you know what happens in a slum area? There's no drainage. There's no clean water per se. The population is usually very high. And after several years, they started noticing that immediately after this factory came here, this smelter came here, children started to develop some weird illnesses. But it started with the workers. Workers started to die one by one. The workers were still living within the same estates. Strange illnesses started coming in. So they started saying, ni majini, na mtu amerogwa. Little did they know that the plant that is within their vicinity is causing all this damage. So when scientists went on the ground, they realized the concentration of lead in the blood of all these people was very high. And some environmental activists took the case very seriously. They went to court, and last year around July, there was a ruling. And they were awarded a total of about 1.4 billion shillings as compensation by the government. That may look as if it's a lot of money. It is not. The damage that has been created is even more than that. Remember, those of you doing heavy metals is a 4-year project. Lead and brain development. Zinaperekana hapa kwa. So all these children within that vicinity, they have some retarded growth, mental development. Another very recent case, last year during Corona, you had all the time to watch the news from the comfort of your village. It was this case of a place in Syokimau where they were complaining about the toxic air within their vicinity caused by a steel manufacturing company. If you go along Mombasa Road near the Kappa Oil Refinery is there. The picture on the lower side is the same facility during operation. Tell me what is happening here now and what is getting released into the environment. And you ask yourself, is NEMA in this country? We are talking about the case on the left-hand side, the persons to compensate for those Uhuru Owino, whatever, is the government agencies responsible for enforcing the regulations. Those agencies are like the county government, NEMA, and all the other people who are associated with licensing those kind of facilities. What the chemical management training should equip you is you don't get to this level. Why do we need to get to this level? That we are acting after a catastrophe. We should see the end from the beginning. This is a steel recycling factory. Where are we placing it? Are we placing it in a place where it can affect the community? And if you look at this episode here, it's still there on YouTube. You can go check it. We cannot breathe, the plight of Syokimau residents in face of air pollution. Go look at it and see the kind of suffering that is happening. You see children who are born healthy developing breathing complications out of inadequate sound chemical management. Next slide. I'm just about to finish. I was given 3 hours, but I only take 1 hour because of lunch. See here, we have enough lunch. Juma? Okay. So what is chemical society trying to do? One of the objectives is to train the senior management and the technical departments in chemical industry in responsible care. If you are able to do this, senior management means you have dealt with the owner. And it's normally said, if a dog is barking at you, you need to look for its owner around that. Is it true? The workers in the industry may not have a lot of control in management of the chemicals. But if you get the owners, the management, and the technical department heads, train them on sound chemical management, tell them it may not be you who will be affected by this chemical. It may be your child, it may be your mother, it may be your brother, it may be your sister. If you are able to do that, you'll be able to raise our bar even higher and our country will be more stable. Then through KCS branches, we need to train personnel in the entire value chain in sound chemical management, e.g. the distributors, the agrovets, the distributors, and the attendants. This is where all the work is. Carry out awareness and advocacy through KCS branches and in collaboration with relevant stakeholders, develop curriculum manuals for continual professional development. So this training that we are doing today will form part of the curriculum that will be utilized in training people on sound chemical management. So by the end of the training, Dr. Gito will ask you about some feedbacks out of the training, what needs to be included as we go ahead. Then we need to develop and train external auditors, people who can do audits and offer these services. And here is a team that is ripe to be trained in auditing on sound chemical management. If you are not the one who will be doing audits on sound chemical management, and I'll discuss that one in the next small presentation, when people are required to audit, who will be there to do those audits? They are the people who have already gone through the training on sound chemical management. Next slide. And here you can see some pictures from Kenya Chemical Society. You can see the people making paint on the top, on the bottom right-hand side. We are people dealing with chemicals, the pioneer chemicals. Can you see it there? The Kenya Chemical Society has already started training some of these people in agrovets and related industries in chemical safety and security. Next slide. It is not, I don't know whether it's very clear, but if you check behind there, you can see some two very familiar faces when the masks were not necessary, where we participated together with Dr. Gitu, participated in drafting the chemical policy at Utalii Hotel in May 2019 before COVID break, so that we can come with the next document in the next slide presentation that I'm making in a moment. Next slide. Now, having known that we have issues in the country, having known that we need to act, and the government being aware that something needs to be done so that we can protect the health of the community and the health of the environment, the Kenyan government, through the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, has come up with Kenya National Chemical Policy. This is a document, it's not in public. Or is it in public yet, Daktari? Not yet. It's a classified document as of now, but we are privy to how it has been formulated together with Dr. Geto and others. And this draft policy will now come in aid of the management of chemicals in the country. Remember, next slide. Remember, some of these chemicals are used across board in so many industries. And in our introduction, we are saying the Kenyan Constitution, that is Article 42, entitles every citizen to a clean, healthy environment, which includes the right to have environment protected for the benefit of present and future generations. We said Constitution is very holy. True or false? If this is in the Constitution, why is it now so difficult to implement? We need a policy. Are you together? We need a policy. A policy that will guide in management of these chemicals. And let me say, the policies that the country is making today, as we had earlier, should have been made in 1963 to guide us throughout when the country became independent. Globally, all nations are gearing towards having a well-documented and outlined policy. Kenya is not an exemption. And I believe in the next 1 year or so, after Parliament approves this policy, it will become part of the documents that will be utilized by enforcement agencies to protect our health and our environment. Can we get rid of chemicals? Can we avoid chemicals? We cannot avoid them. We can only manage them. So, sound chemical management is a critical determinant for clean and healthy environment and key in achievement of SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, before Sustainable Development Goals, we had what we called, before Sustainable Development Goals, we had, remind me, you know. Do you remember what used to be called Millennium Development Goals? Have you heard of that? The Millennium Development Goals, once they were not achieved, they were repackaged into what we call Sustainable Development Goals. They are, I think, 17 in number, if I can recall. Here in Kenya, Sustainable Development Goals are universal, and they have been domesticated. Here in Kenya, we have long-term and short-term visions, like the Vision 2030. Vision 2030 is only how many years away? 8 years away now. What we need to have achieved by those. And chemical management has to be anchored there in Vision 2030. Because the developments that we are talking, industrial development that we are talking about, may not avoid use of chemicals. Everything we touch, everything we use, somehow has to utilize some chemicals. And for our two young people, the inseparable brothers, you know them? They have the big four agenda. The big four from the political realms. The big four, we cannot have them without chemicals. Can we achieve big four without chemicals? I don't want to ask that question whether you know what big four is all about, because we might take a lot of time. We are saying there that governments across the globe will recognize that chemicals are essential in areas of medicine, agriculture, to consumer goods, cleaner technologies, overcoming poverty, but chemicals and the pollution linked with their manufacture use, and disposal come at a cost. Residents of Uhuru Owino, the chemicals of lead in that environment came at a very big cost. There were people who were permanently maimed by those chemicals. It has come to a cost to the health sector because those children and those people who have been poisoned have to be somehow treated. It has come at a cost to the government because our taxes, if the government ever pays those people, compensates those people, will have to give out at least 1.4 billion shillings to that community to compensate them. So managing the effects is more expensive than sound chemical management. Sound chemical management is cheaper than the effects. Are you together there? So it will come at a cost, but slightly cheaper than the outcome of it. Next slide. And we have mentioned all nations have endeavored to develop strategies on management of chemicals through voluntary or through legally binding instruments. And Dr. Nyanawade will talk about how toxic and hazardous chemicals are regulated under various multilateral environmental agreements. And the challenge that we have in this country is some of these toxic and hazardous chemicals, they are imported in Kenya. They are supposed to be restricted. However, they are not well tracked. So we may find somebody saying, I'm importing tires. Well, in the container, half of the container is tires, and the other half is some toxic chemical. How do we know this? Because anytime you do environmental studies for some of these chemicals, you find them in the environment. You wonder, what the hell, how did they end up in our environment? Through some of those loopholes in the government. This is due to inadequate enforcement of standards of imported chemicals. Use of chemicals with long-lasting residual effects is not scientifically determined. Lack of compliance with formulation procedures, labeling, storage, transportation, and application guidance. Already I've mentioned that. Handling of chemicals by unqualified persons. You need to get some skills before you handle the chemicals. Chemicals are not water. Chemicals are dangerous. Chemicals can kill. Now, in order now to narrow down with the Kenya chemical policy, you can go to the next slide. I have mentioned that the Ministry of Forestry is implementing a chemical special program to support institutional strengthening at the national level by enhancing implementations of multilateral agreements and also the strategic approach to international chemical management. This one will be tackled by Dr. Gitu. And the project is funded by UNEP, and the official launch of this program for management of this was done on 15th February 2021 at Sarova Pan-Africa Hotel, and our national chairman, Kenya Chemical Society, attended that launch. And out of the agreement that they made out of that, the Multisectoral Coordination Committee on Sound Chemical Management was launched, and here we are as the first cohort of people who gained the first skills out of what happened on 15th February. So we are talking about very new knowledge and skills. Are you together there? We need to appreciate the fact that we have been able to coin up something after such a short period of time. Remember, sometimes documents are created, they end up in shelves without getting some implementation. Next slide. That multi-sectoral committee on sound chemical management, there is no much chemistry here. Now it's about the multi-sectoral committee and the policy. Has the function of reviewing the national policy on sound chemical management. It is in charge of promotion of collaborative activities, partnership amongst key stakeholders, everybody who is using chemicals. Review, and those SICHEM implementation plan, as you have seen in the last slide, about the strategic approach to international chemical management, because we cannot operate in a vacuum. We have to look at what other people are doing in other parts of the world. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are trying to domesticate what other organizations are doing. The same committee will be in charge of coordination of data collection, analysis, and information knowledge management. If you do some research, they can pick up that research. If you're looking at some of these chemicals in the environment, they can look at that research and analyze that information so that it can be acted upon appropriately. And again, I mentioned about the awareness and advocacy on sound chemical management, and support decision-making amongst the chemical management stakeholders, develop multi-sectoral projects and implementation of those projects. But remember, the people, some of the stakeholders in the chemical industry may not be excited when this document come into play. Are you together? This is political because it can come at a very big cost. You may have been releasing your effluent into the environment. You need to take care of that effluent. You may not be supplying your workers with enough personal protective equipment. It may come with the cost of that, but that is the cost of saving our current generation and our future generation. So in order to bring together people who can be able to develop a well-articulated policy, the key membership, the next one, of the committee is the government and key lead agencies and sectors. Example is Kenya Bureau of Standards, NEMA, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Environment, and so many other organizations and ministries. We have specialized sectors of the economy and other sectors, such as Kenya Chemical Society, Agricultural Association, Agrochemical Association of Kenya, and the rest. We have people who are enablers, such as the Kenya Ports Authority, KEMRI, Kenya Industrial Research Training Institute, Federation of Kenyan Employers, KEFIS. Those are enablers or specialized agencies. And we also have universities as members of that committee. And as you can see there, Jomo Kenyatta is one of the members of that multi-sectoral committee, and the main representative in that multi-sectoral committee is our current Kenya Chemical Society National Chair. The Kenya Chemical Policy is guided by some 11 basic principles. You can go to the next one. 11 basic elements of sound chemical management. So the first is the legal frameworks that address the life cycle of chemicals and wastes from extraction to the finished commodity, and again, what is happening in between as the chemical gets interconverted. The second basic element is ensure that there is relevant enforcement and compliance mechanisms. We have been having our organizations such as NEMA and KEBS as part of the compliance bodies. However, we have been seeing instances where compliance is almost zero. The case of lead poisoning or the case in Syokimau, it was not an issue to do with the investor per se. It was an issue to do with, and it has and remains an issue to do with the enforcement and compliance. If nobody is asking you, do you need to comply? Because compliance is costly. True or false? Very, very costly. And if there is laxity in the side of the enforcement agencies, again, the investor may opt to sacrifice the environment and the health and fail to comply. And this is what has been aiding us. It's about me, I, me, and is it true? About I, me, and myself. You are not worrying about what you're doing to the environment because the owner of, let's say, those factories do not reside within that environment. They reside in the posh environment. Those who come from Mombasa, which is the best place to stay in Mombasa? Muthaiga ya Mombasa inaitwa? Inaitwa? Turdo. Iko ni hao wote ni watu wa bara. Inakaa wote ni watu wa bara. Nyali. Chini ya Mnanzi. Sawa. I was just saying that some of the people who have these industries do not reside within those facilities, but their relatives are. So there is need for us to, as we try to implement this aspect of sound chemical management, we remember it's not about I, me, and myself. You need to think about the complete chain, including your children. Because when you're talking about yourself, you're not including your children there. Because you are doing it to get rich then, there, and then. Are we together? So then the other role or what this organization or this committee will do is implementation of chemicals and waste-related multilateral environmental agreements, as well as health, labor, and other relevant conventions in voluntary mechanisms. Then create strong institutional frameworks and coordination mechanisms among relevant stakeholders. Let's move in these slides faster. Next, are we in number 5? Then the other things that this committee will do is collection and systems for transparent sharing of relevant data and information amongst stakeholders using life cycle approach, such as implementation of GHS, of classification and labeling of chemicals. Data is largely self-explanatory, but I would like you to go and investigate what is this that we are saying about life cycle. It may not be the same as simple as the life cycle of a fly. You remember the life cycle of a fly? We used to draw egg, larva, pupa, adult. Then the cycle continues. Now, for chemicals, there is now the life cycle. There may not be an actual death of the chemical, but we need to look at the life cycle and all the aspects of the life cycle of that chemical. Then we need to enforce, the committee needs to enforce the industry participation and defined responsibility across the life cycle, including cost recovery policies and systems, as well as incorporation of sound chemical management into corporate policies and practices. In Europe, there is a policy that says polluter pays it all. If you pollute, you can be auctioned because you have to pay the price of remediation. Are we together? Here, in Europe, they have very good enforcement mechanism. So if for some reason, some scrupulous businessman decides to pollute, he has to pay it all. And the good thing is that the workers are very sincere. They love their environment. They always say, instead of taking this one to treatment, we are discharging this one in the groundwater. Because one of the issues we are having in places like Kariobangi Light Industries and related places, their effluent, they have very deep wells, they put their effluent, but in the next home, there's somebody using the well water. And you know the migration of water from one well to the other well. Instead of drinking clean water, you're drinking some very toxic water. Number 7, we have inclusion of sound management of chemicals and waste in national health, labor, social environment, and economic budgeting processes and development. Sound chemical management should be core in some of this. The next slide. We are talking about the committee performing what we call risk assessment. Even before you start producing a chemical, you do risk assessment. Once you start the production, if there are risks, you implement or devise ways through which you can reduce the risks, because you cannot avoid the chemical, but you can reduce the risk associated with those chemicals. Instead of putting the smelter or the recycling plant in Syokimau, why couldn't you have taken that recycling plant in Ijara, where we don't have as high population as Syokimau? There are all those costs that are associated. The other one is strengthen capacity to deal with chemicals, accident, including institutional strengthening for poison centers. I don't know if you know what you can do if you go to the lab and you spill some chemical on yourself. Do you know what you're supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Shout. Call the technician. What are you supposed to do? Sorry? Use a lot of water. It depends with the kind of chemical itself. If you are not skilled and you pour some chemical on yourself, some people will just take a sponge. Ikosa? It's only some small itching. I can only feel some small itching around here, but it's ikosawa. The other one is, what we are saying there is you strengthen the capacity of all the users of chemicals in order they can be able to effectively handle incidents and accidents that can happen in the process of their use of chemicals, including aspects to do with remediation. We have had some oil spill recently. Where? Do you remember the oil spill? Was it in Makueni? News, what were news? Remember there was an oil spill somewhere. Kenya pipeline, along the Kenya pipeline, go check, see whether it was ever remediated. But a whole community for some years may not have clean drinking water. I don't know whether Kenya pipeline has remediated or not. This is what we are talking about, strengthening the institution. And if you are the polluter, you have to pay. Number 10 is about monitoring and assessing the impacts of chemicals on health and the environment. That one I may not remember so much. And development and promotion of environmentally sound and safer alternatives. The question that a chemist should always ask himself is, this is toxic. Do I have an alternative? The alternative may be more expensive, but more environmentally friendly. Next slide. I only have 2 more slides. The overall vision of this of this committee is to promote sustainable management of chemicals at all stages in their life cycle, including products, taking into account national sectoral strategies and policies and laws, and international instruments and processes already developed and flexible enough to deal with the new ones, and also vision of taking into account the dual use of chemicals and transboundary movement and disposal of hazardous waste. So the overall vision is to manage the chemical in its life cycle in entirety. Are we together? So that the environment is safe and our health is safe. So the action areas in the next slide, as I finish, is about we want to reduce the risk, deliver knowledge and information, enhance the governance so that we have better laws, better enforcement strategies to do with chemicals. We strengthen the institution so that they can handle chemicals in a better way. We create some partnership between the enforcement agencies and the other stakeholders so that they can work with harmony. We deal with action areas that needs capacity building like we are doing today. The committee needs to do resource mobilization because there's nothing as difficult as fighting cartels. Are we together? Manufacturing industries, they are big cartels. So you need a lot of resources to fight them. NEMA will try, but some people will get compromised. You be an enforcement agent for NEMA. You may decide, instead of saving the environment, let me do a skyscraper. That will definitely come as an enforcement agent, where you are trying to be induced into taking bribes and others. So resources are very necessary so that even the enforcement agents have enough financial muscle right from their personal pockets so that they can be able to fight for better environment and sound chemical management. Then action areas look at illegal international traffic of chemicals. As I mentioned to you earlier, you may find somebody importing diapers and not importing diapers but importing other chemicals. You have always seen the government arresting some contraband goods. Have you seen them? Illegal chemicals. Then we have emergency preparedness and response. What will happen if we have an oil spill? How are we prepared? You remember during Mukuru kwa Ruben or Mukuru kwa Jenga, there was an oil spill that got exploded at some point, and so many individuals got consumed by fire, got burnt. You remember? Not long ago. You are still adults. Hamuku High School. Huh? Along the pipeline. Mukuru of something. Mukuru moja. You know Mukuru is a valley. If you don't know. We need some emergency preparedness. Are you together? How do we prepare for some of these eventualities? How do we arrest an oil spill before it gets into the groundwater? How do we map the way this oil spill will move so that we can warn those people in advance? Are you together? It's not only an oil spill, including other chemical spills, because we have mentioned that Kenya is continuously investing in the chemical industry. The chemical industry is growing. Accidents will definitely happen. And nobody knows when an accident can happen. So you need a complete and well-articulated structure that can be able to enhance that you are prepared to respond to some of those concerns. And finally, you need to know, or action areas, is chemicals of security concern. Chemicals of security concern. Again, in the news, there was this character in Russia who was injected by some chemical. Do you know him? Yes? Recently. I want you to settle so that I can finish what I'm saying. So, some of those chemicals are chemicals of security concern. How do we deal with our fertilizer, the ammonium nitrate? Are we able to track how it is imported until it gets into the farm? Because ammonium nitrate is a potential bomb. 2 bags of ammonium nitrate can do a lot of damage. Are you able to monitor some of those? Dr. Gito, a few years ago, not so long ago, he went abroad and did a training on chemicals, OPCW, chemical weapons. So he is trained in dealing with chemical weapons, how to neutralize them, and related issues. That one is an issue for another day. But some of the action areas that are required is, how do we deal with these chemicals if they happen to be detected or to be found on the Kenyan soil? Not only the soil itself, but within Kenya. All those are areas that the multi-sectoral committee on sound chemical management will deal with, but you need to be well equipped with what it entails to be conversant with sound chemical management. Once you do so, you'll be a better person in this country who will be able to implement some of these issues with ease. I wish to stop there so that I can give the opportunity to the other presenters. I hope you have got something out of this interaction, and you already have the PowerPoint slides with you. I'm not the one who is controlling, so the PowerPoint slides are yours. You can use them if you want to use them. And all the best, and thank you for giving me the platform and the opportunity to speak to you. And I'm done. I don't know whether you have an opportunity for questions. If there's any question, or we do the questions at the end. Yes, we do the questions at the end. Thank you.
Let's appreciate Dr. Ngumba. Wow, I can't imagine this program should have started when I was in first year. I would have attended all of them and even organized myself another one just for me. Nikuwe nimekaa huko nyuma and then I get all the professors there and then I write the notes and record them myself. Okay, thank you for your patience and you people are looking good, eh? Yeah, your faces are bright and sijaona mtu mwenye sura yake inaonyesha njaa. Si ndio? Yes. So before uanze kulia njaa, let's get this one. This one that I'm scratching right in front of you. Watu wa Telcom tafadhali, nyinyi muende SPA. Telcom tuko SPA, sawa sawa? This is for Safaricom. So *141 star 8378 2726 5278 0136. Nani? Oh, I can see another technophone there. Simon Mwangi Kimani is my classmate bwana. Oh, mnasema ni industrial. Poleni sana nyinyi watu analytical. The only time you come first is during the alphabetical letters peke yake. Yes. Poleni sana. Tunawaombea Mungu awasaidie. Now, when Dr. Ngumba was talking about labeling and of chemicals and so forth and so on, he reminded me a lot of things. Especially when I was young. I used to steal my mother's sugar. Na unajua ukiwa huko nyumbani, si mnajua huko nyumbani? Yeah, you're not supposed to put sugar in porridge. It's prohibited. So she used to hide, but I knew all the corners. So one day, this is what she did. Instead of putting sugar in the usual container, she replaced it with salt. So by the time I was tasting my porridge, sawa. Sawa. The same thing happens to a certain sherehe nikiwa nyumbani. Now, I have not been introduced to alcohol. I'm not saying I'm introduced today. I'm still very pure. In fact, if you could measure my alcohol, daktari, you could only use in parts per billion. Not even per million. No. Mi sina pombe. But my father alikuja na hizo beer. So after watu kukunywa, instead of kuweka hizo beer vizuri, zilipangwa vizuri chini ya kitanda, but the bottles were filled with paraffin instead of beer. So mimi nikasema, mbona watu wakikunywa hii kitu wanalewa? Mbona wanaongea kizungu mingi? I wanted to test the remains, zile zimebaki. So ni ile unataka kujificha uchape haraka. When I only realized when the first one was already here. I hope they degrade. Sawa, okay. We are grateful to have the JKUAT with us. They are always supporting us ever since they came to office. Of course, even before they came, the JKUAT had been supporting us. But the president has always been with us. He's here also. Before we go to the next speaker, please, let's just allow him to greet us just for 2 minutes for the purpose of coming together. Sindio? Yeah, Mr. Abdullahi Somo, the president himself. Please join me. Let's clap for Mr. Somo.
Asante sana. Thank you, First of all, I'm Kea Wesonga. I'm the School of Communication and Development Studies representative. And when he was introducing the president, I thought it's respectful and in order that the school rep speaks first before the chairman. Sindio? Okay, nimefurahi sana kuwa hapa leo. Tulikuwa tunaongea na school rep wenyu ambaye ni my fellow congressperson JKUSA kuhusu event. Alikuwa ananielezea venye imekuwa organized na nikasema acha pia mimi leo nitokee, at least I get to learn something, niende ni apply huko School of Communication. Si ndio? Next time nyinyi mkifanya sound chemical management, mimi niko huko nafanya sound communication management. Si inafaa hivyo. And I think tukiweza saidiana kimawazo hivyo, the ideas, I think it will have a very impressive outcome on JKUSA as a whole. If we have all the 20 schools in JKUAT, this school reps does this, and we learn from him, we apply it in CORED, someone learns from it, applies it in COHES, in COPAS. I think hivyo tutazidi kuenda mbele pamoja ka university. Otherwise, nimefurahi sana kuwa hapa leo. Hata nilikuwa meeting ya class reps, but nikasema hakuna venye naweza kosa sound chemical management. Lazima nikuje nijifunze. Next time mkiona poster ya School of Communication tukiorganize kitu kama hii, mjue nilikuja hapa nikawaibia kidogo. Otherwise, asanteni sana.
Warembo na mavijana. Good evening. Oh, it's good afternoon. How are you guys? All protocols observed. The doctors we have, the professors if they are, and school reps, leadership of Society of Chemists, beautiful ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon once again. And I'm not new to this society. Actually, sometimes people question whether I am from the School of Physical Sciences. You know, I tell them every hard work must be appreciated. At that time, when we had our event here, and I said all school reps should emulate this and ensure that they enact at their own respective schools. We are seeing the fruit of that. Today we have a school rep who said that he will work on having a similar one like this. But like, you know, and I am from Koitek. So sometimes we don't interact much with the chemical stuff. But the other day I was watching a video about this COVID vaccine. I don't know how it's related with chemicals. And but I saw someone who can attach a magnet to his hand and saying that, you know, and he was injected with a vaccine. So maybe I don't know if the doctors will clarify on that, or it's just a social media video. And beside the point, and doctors, lecturers here, thank you very much for impacting the students. We're really grateful from the bottom of our heart. Thank you very much. And secondly, of course, everyone knows that I love this school with every fiber of my being. Maze, you deserve a clap. Clap, please. Thank you very much. You know, when we have our parliament sitting, that's what we call the Congress, it doesn't end until I appreciate Brandon Mudavadi. So watu wanasema huyu Mudavadi kwani is he a son of the Mudavadi? But I tell him no, he's a son of Society of Chemists. Mazee mkombele sana. And the other time we talked of the soap tender. and we're working with the society. You know how tenders in public institutions work. They delay. Despite the delay, we're working on it, and I think it will be the first successful application that we're going to do, and we must get that one for this society, mazee. Mimi nasema siwezi toka hapo the presidency before ni achieve that one. Hata time yangu ikisha nasema pana, I have to make sure I stay there, hata nianze nilete bibia ingine nikae kidogo. So with that, I think when I was told about this meeting, and sometimes by Sakwa and Mudavadi, Brian Sakwa and Mudavadi, I said lazima nifiki. So this is a society. When you're here, you have to get time for this society. This seriousness came from you guys. Congratulations. So naona tu leo nikikaa hapa tu niwaambie mmefanya mazuri, congratulations, mmefanya mazuri, congratulations. And if I can move ahead to what we have for the comrades, and I know you guys have third years, fourth years, second years, or even first years, as you have said articulately well, that you wish you were here many times, that you get impacted with this knowledge. Let me tell you that what matters in this world, Mazee, is that ile talent umeivisha. For example, kama unajua ku develop something, hiyo ivisha, ukiivisha vizuri, nobody will give you a competition. So, and you guys, you are from one of the best institutions, as I always say, in East and Central Africa, south of Sahara, north of Limpopo. So ensure you achieve that, mazee. Talent inakupeleka mbele sana. So ile talent, ile unajua kuna hiyo uko nayo una develop, lakini lecturers wanakuja wanatusaidia fanyeni hivi hapa na pale. That one itakuwa tu yako. So ensure you do that work well. And for the comrades, as from JKUAT, and we say we always stand with comrades. First thing, we know Corona has impacted us negatively and maybe financially, most of us. So we are going to give out our bursary in the course of this month, July. So ensure you liaise with these officials. They can give you some recommendations. Waseme sasa huyu comrade hataki 5,000 and hataka 50,000. So watuambie pia, we have to do that consideration. And if that person is from the Society of Chemists, Brian, I think huyo mtu anafaa kuongezewa ingine. Make sure he has to stay well. And we also establishing, so make sure that one, fuatilia vizuri, na usikose hiyo nafasi. And we also establishing a scholarship for the students and through sportsmen. Ensure ukipata posta kidogo ya JKUAT, pia umavijana do an inquiry. We do quite well. Sawa sawa. So kuna kitu ina happen na wewe ujui, you don't take part, don't do that. Hiyo ni ile subscription pesa yako yenye unatoanga. So ensure you get a replica of it. Sawa sawa. Iko chonjo hiyo. And other thing is also, I was also telling my school rep that he should come here, but he told me he's in studio. He's busy presenting, so also receive greetings from him. Pia atasema atafanya yake. And we did an allocation for all the schools, and our priority is School of Chemists. So I think panga meeting mzuri, which also JKUAT will sponsor. Hata kama itakuwa dinner ama itakuwa nini, sure we also appreciate our lecture as well. So that will also be from JKUAT to support this school. The other thing I was discussing with our school rep here in the morning, and we were saying, this school has done a marvelous work. So to appreciate, we need a banner like this one here. This banner here, this one is for JKUAT. So we said we have to establish also for this School of Society of Chemists and the School of Physical Science. As much now there is a merger with the School of Mathematical Science. So, but for the Society of Chemists, we will, personally, when I was told about the idea, I was so happy about it. So we say lazima tufanye hiyo kazi, and whether it is from our pocket or whether we do contribution, lazima tufanye. Then nikakaa chini nikasema sasa shule huwezi acha hivyo. So we will have we can start contribution for poster, and we get the budget. I will pay half the money for that poster, and the other it's not big. So the other, I think also we can do some allocations here and there. For that one, keep it in the record. I am ready for it. So that by hii ingine tunafanya next week, tunataka kusema hii ni bana ya Society of Chemists. Ndio pia watu wasiseme sasa Soma wako na siasa mingi ya kuja hapa kufurahisha watu. Si ni sawa? So hii kazi school rep lazima tuanze hiyo. At least we also do some achievement for school. And with those few and our doctors and professors, I'm still waiting for the answer of that question. But I'm very grateful to be associated with this school. Thank you very much, guys. And I think, yes, I have addressed the issue of the soap tender, the issue of allocation, and the issue of the banner. With those few, I will always be here for every developing issue. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
Hiyo makofi iko chini bwana. Hey. Ama Mr. Somo upendi makofi? Upendi appreciation. Now, Mr. Somo, you've just assured the Society of Chemists that utatupea kazi. Si ndio? Sisi hatuna kazi. Wewe ndio serikali. Kwa hivyo tunaambia serikali utupee kazi. Tafadhali tupatie kazi. Si ndio? Good. My friend here siko nimekurecognize sawa sawa. Yeah, but mimi nakuanga mkubwa huku SPS, sio huko nje. Sawa sawa. Yes. Mnaweza pia nipea kazi. Tunaona tunapiga event after event. Si ndio? So you can even liaise with your people from Kored. Wakuje watujoin huku. This is not just for chemistry. Chemical sound management, as Dr. Ngumba explained, affects each and every person. Right from the day they are born to when you die. Sawa sawa. So we also invite, because you are the people who do procurement, and then for journalism, you are the people who will be in media explaining. I watched Toxic Flow. How many people watched Toxic Flow was it in NTV or Citizen? Toxic Flow. They were explaining how River Nairobi ends up in somewhere in Ukambani, and mtu anakuja na lori imeandikwa clean water, and then anaenda kuuza. So you guys, yeah, you're welcome. Sawa sawa. Yeah, I don't want to waste a lot of time. We are live in all JKUAT platforms right now. Courtesy of Discover JKUAT, you can tell your friends, kama uko na mama ako huko nyumbani, mwambie hata mimi ninaonekana JKUAT saa hizi. Sawa sawa. Aende Discover JKUAT, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, even Society of Chemists. Tuko juu bwana. Sisi saa hizi hakuna shule inatufikia. Siwezi kudanganya. Na si ati tunaringa, si ndio? Good. Now let's get to the business of the day again. We have the only lady amongst the professors here. She's also been very supportive. Currently the coordinator of the project coordinator of chemistry department. Her name is Dr. Nyawade. She'll be handling multilateral environmental agreement, and she'll base her study or maybe explanations using Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm and Minamata conventions. Okay? Hizo majina msijali. Sawa sawa. Yes. Please let's welcome Dr. Eunice Nyawade. Mko na njaa? Refreshments tafadhali. Exec, mlete refreshments tafadhali.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as you've been told, I'm Dr. Nyawade. It's unfortunate that you mentioned that I've never taught you any of the units, but I've been with the institution for more than 7 years. Maybe it's just that I've been on and off. I also want to take this opportunity to thank all of you for being very patient to listen to all of us, and more so to thank the organizers for the invite. I hope that we'll be able to interact if a chance comes as I present. And I hope that the presentation will be of help to everyone. Now, this is, what's your name again?